Welcome to Around the Paul, your one-stop shop for everything Clemson. And we're back with another episode. Glad to have you watching along with us tonight. Good to be back. I'm Garrett Mitchell, joined as always by Griffin Barfield and Clifton Kennedy. And we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. A lot of great things, cool things we're going to talk about happening around Clemson athletics. We're going to go back and review what was said at ACC Media Day. That was a pretty big deal. Lots of opinions being thrown out and about surrounding the Tigers and other teams that Clemson's going to be matching up against. So a lot to talk about there. Then we're going to talk updated Clemson news, some happenings that have gone on around the program. Former Clemson wide receiver getting a shot with one of the NFL's elite teams. And we're also going to talk about a new offer that's gone out to a class of 2024 linebacker. We're going to talk Clemson defense. And since it's been hot outside, we're going to talk about a little bit of shade being thrown the Clemson defense's way as well. So we've got a lot to get to tonight. But first, guys, how's your week been? How's it been going? And hopefully everything's been going well. Griffin, hope that wrist is getting better every day.
Yeah.
Good.
Just got out of the cast today. But honestly, it's been great. I'm like the heat down in South Carolina here. It's been absolutely beautiful, like between 75 and 80 every day. Last week it was a little bit brutal, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm just been enjoying the, just really nice weather and trying to soak in as much time as I can with family before I head down to Clemson for the semester.
Well, Clifton, should we break it to Griffin that we're about to catch up with him? The high temperature here tomorrow is supposed to be 74.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be nice down here, so looking forward to Friday, man. Looking forward to Friday.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, let's jump right into it tonight, guys. And, of course, last week was ACC Media Days that took place in Charlotte. And a lot that was talked about, a lot of course, as it always is, a lot of opinions, predictions, prognostications. And, of course, the opinions surrounding Clemson were to a degree varied. Of course, Coach Swinney and Tyler Davis, Cade Klubnik, and all of the Clemson guys, they're confident as you would expect them to be. And then there are some players from other teams that the Tigers are going to match up with that are, shall we say, confident in their own right. So, Griffin, Clifton, what did you draw from Media Day, and what were some of the things that you took away from that?
So for me, the biggest thing that I saw was the amount of confidence that Clemson has in, their own team. I know we're going to get to talking about, Cade Klubnik and what he thinks in a little bit, but overall, just whether it be with Dabo Swinney, whether it be with Tyler Davis, I believe Will Putnam was the other guy that went with the Tigers for ACC Media Day. It's just been very confident, and it's been a room that's just worked hard all summer, worked hard all spring, and we saw a little bit of it. But from other teams, it's kind of just been the hunter gets hunted. I mean, we've talked about this before with, guys like Mike Norvell, Mike Elko, those coaches of those projected top ACC teams, and even players like Garrett Schrader with Syracuse, they're hungry, which makes good for, some great competition. And, it might up the stakes a little bit. Maybe, you take these words to heart if you're Clemson, if you're these players, and, you execute and, see where we go from there. But honestly, it's just been, Clemson's been confident. All these other teams have been confident. But at the end of the day, you want to take down the king. And that's kind of what every other team besides the Tigers are doing.
Yeah, and Clifton, one thing that I drew away from what Cade Klubnik was talking about, it seems like his comfort level with his receivers and his playmakers has really grown since he took over as the starting quarterback last year, then starting 2 games or playing the majority of the game against North Carolina in the ACC championship, starting against Tennessee, then going through spring practice and as we get ready for fall camp now. And he mentioned some of these guys by name, and one that really stood out to me, and it's a guy that we've talked about, could be a major impact for the Tigers, and that's Adam Randall. And Klubnik was very specific to mention Randall, saying if people don't know who this young man is, he said they're going to know really quickly just what a freak of a receiver that Adam Randall is. So to me, that was very bolstered me a little bit as a fan and somebody who covers Clemson, that Klubnik is that confident and he sees how good his playmakers can be. And if he goes in and trusts these guys, man, I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Something that I heard from watching most of the interviews is something that Dabo always says, and that is we worry about Clemson, and we're worried about ourselves, and we're not worried about anybody else. We just want to do our job, and if we do our job, we'll get to where we want to be. When it comes to Randall, I've since I saw him, even though he got injured, I mean, you could tell in spring practice last year that that he was one of those guys that was, going to be a great receiver. And I think with Cade Klubnik, and he's going to flourish. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And Griffin, another player that Cade mentioned specifically by name, and I've been saying this all along, even going back to last year, he really, I thought, started to flash toward the end of last season and just became a monster for opposing defenses. And that's Jake Brenningstool at tight end. I love his game. I love what he brings to the table at 6 feet 6 inches tall. And not only he can play tight end, he's a tight end by trade, but he's athletic enough and fast enough to play receiver as well. So he can play inside or out. And at 6'6", and I think Cade said it best, he's just a matchup nightmare for guys, and somebody I think is a big safety net, more or less, for Cade. If a play breaks down, you've got this big 6'6" target that you can go to, and that's going to be an integral factor of the offense.
Oh, 100%. Even, third down, third and short, goal line, he's going to look for Brenningstool. He's kind of the biggest guy there. He can win one-on-ones. He can win jump balls against cornerbacks that, to be fair, I don't think they'll be over the height of 6'3", or they'll probably be around 6 foot, which just shows kind of just the height advantage you have there. And with that being said, just the frame advantage as well, probably just with jump balls. But like you said, Garrett, I like this guy a lot. I think that he's bound for a great year. I think just overall, there is plenty of receivers that can, jump exponentially from, last year to this year. And I know Randall was one of the guys that we talked about. I think Brenningstool's another. And, it just shows that Cade Klubnik has plenty of options. And especially with Garrett Riley and his new scheme, this offense is going to explode. And I think fans should be extremely excited if they're not already.
Right, and there's a lot to like for sure around the Clemson offense and the Clemson defense. To me, it's when you look up and down, it's one of the most complete rosters. I think certainly more complete than the last 2 seasons have been. But as much as there's a lot to like, Coach Swinney unfortunately did have to address an unfortunate topic on ACC Media Day, and that was the dismissal of redshirt freshman TJ Dudley from the team for what Coach Swinney termed a violation of team rules. And given his past history, Dabo, he's never going to divulge specifically what that violation was. I think for a simple fact is that even when he has to discipline these young men, he still cares about them. He still loves them. He doesn't want to throw them under the bus. But, the fact of the matter is that TJ Dudley is a good football player, and whether or not he would start or how many snaps he would see this year, that negatively impacts the linebacker depth for the Tigers.
Definitely. And like you said, Dabo did say that he was maybe a little bit mature to start off, but he was a great player. And he was optimistic about him leaving. He said, although rules are rules, a fresh start is important for anybody for that matter. And he is off to Ole Miss, a 4-star, used to be a 4-star prospect. He'll be great for the Rebels. And, I think Dabo agrees that, you just want the best for a player and you just want to wish somebody the best. So, although it does hurt the linebacker room a little bit, there are a couple, role players that could jump up with Dudley leaving. But, you hate to see it with a violation of a team rule and, somebody leaving. So, you got to just wish him the best and just wish him the best of luck at Ole Miss.
Right. And Clifton, kind of the ripple effect that provided. And it was just a few weeks ago, we were talking about Clemson being over the maximum number of scholarship spots. Then, of course, Will Taylor stepped away. That opened a spot that brought them back down to the legal amount. Now, with Dudley being dismissed from the team and transferring out, Clemson is actually 2 below the allotted scholarship limit. They're at 83 right now. So while it's unfortunate for Clemson, it's unfortunate for TJ. It's going to open up some opportunities for a couple of guys, maybe a couple of walk-ons who have worked really hard and have busted tail as much as anybody to earn scholarships and to make that name for themselves. So as much of a negative as it is, there's probably going to be a positive that comes out of this.
I feel like out of every negative, there always comes a positive. And, it might take a while for that to come to fruition, but there's always a positive. And in this situation, that positive is getting us, under the scholarship limit. But I also think it's going to give more players, more linebackers, that aren't starters a chance to step up and, be maybe come along in that second string and be a guy that we can rely on if something happens to a starter. We pray that it doesn't, but you never know.
Right, for sure. So, it was a lot going on at ACC Media Day. I thought some good thoughts from both sides, from Clemson and from some of the Tigers' opponents. And now really it's just a matter of you're counting down at this point, and we're into August now, so you're about a month away from the first game of the season at Duke. But as fun as ACC Media Day was, let's talk about some Clemson news and some water cooler chatter that has been going around in the last week. And let's start with the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about Alabama football. The rumors flying left and right about Clemson and Florida State potentially leaving the ACC to join the Big Ten. Now, there's been rumors and talk of Clemson leaving the ACC going back probably a couple of years. I don't know that they've ever been linked to the Big Ten. So that kind of came out of left field. So I'm interested to see what, for you guys, what your reactions to that is and what your thoughts were when you first heard that.
Again, it's for money. That's kind of, the main point of this. And, it doesn't even matter geographically. I thought, and I'm sure the two of you would agree with me, that if Clemson were to leave the ACC, they were going to go to the SEC just to join. It just works geographically. But, it just scratches my head. And I know that it's a rumor, and then some people on Twitter are saying that it's going to be announced at the end of the weekend. I don't trust that. I just want to hear from, Graham now for whoever it may be, but it's a weird move. And, you said Clemson and Florida State, as well as I think it was Washington and Oregon were the other two from out west. It's a weird bunch. And I'll tell you that, especially if you're playing north to where I live, playing teams like Penn State and Michigan, I just don't really understand it. And, I'm sure that we'll find out, this weekend and with weeks to come, but it's weird. It's a weird, and obviously it is for money. So, what can you expect in the world of college football nowadays?
Right. Cliff, what were your thoughts about it? I think Griffin brought up a good point that if anything, it's just for money, but at the same time, it is a weird collection of teams being talked about. You've got two teams from the Deep South in Clemson and Florida State, along with two teams from the West Coast that have been involved in these rumors. And I'm with Griffin. What I'm seeing on Twitter and online, I don't trust it, because at first it was supposed to have been announced yesterday, and now it's supposed to be this weekend. So to me, if it's anything, it's nothing at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. My first thought was why? Why the Big Ten? And if anything, like we were talking, SEC makes more sense. And just make it one big conference, and let's go play with the big boys all the time. But the Big Ten, I don't get it. I don't want to play Ohio State all the time. I don't want to play Michigan all the time. I don't know.
it just don't make sense. Like, I don't really know what else to say, you know?
Well, I do agree
player,
with
though.
you both. Griffin, Clifton, I agree with you both that I think if Clemson were to switch conferences, it would be to the SEC because, hey, I mean, it just means more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I mean, you play more teams there. You're closer geographically to, Georgia, USC. It makes the most sense, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think we'll see how that plays out. Again, I don't expect anything imminent. Again, as I said, it was supposed to have been, at least if you listen to the Twitter and internet pundits, it was supposed to have been announced Tuesday. Now they're saying this weekend. So, no, these things take time. If you're going to initiate a move like this, it's not going to happen overnight. There's got to be logistics implemented and put in place before you can consider it. So, no, I don't expect anything to be said by this weekend. And as a matter of fact, I read a story just this afternoon that touched on the Big Ten looking to expand, and it explicitly said that Clemson was not even on their radar.
Yeah. At this point, who knows? Because, you got I don't even know, with Texas and Oklahoma joining a different conference too. At this point, it's just a toss-up. Like, who knows? Pac-12's falling apart, that whole thing. But I just really don't know. I really don't know, and I'll just let it happen. I won't, predict teams to go anywhere because you can have a East Coast team go to the West Coast conference. That's just how it's going to go nowadays. It's pretty much about money and where you want to play on a TV station. That's kind of, how it would go.
Right on. And, while we're talking about Clemson, usually, of course, that's the big rumor flying around. But let's talk about something that's a little bit more, not going to say set in stone, but it's a little bit more flattering, I suppose, toward the Tigers. And that's and we're going to talk about 247 Sports several times in this podcast. And I guess we'll give them the hat tip before we maybe eviscerate them a little bit. But 247 Sports released its list of top 20 players in the ACC, and that was over the weekend. And 3 Clemson players did make that list. And let's see if you guys agree with that. Coming in on that list was Jeremiah Trotter, linebacker, another linebacker, Barrett Carter. They were actually at number 18, Trotter was the number 5 best player in the ACC, according to 247. Barrett Carter was number 18, and running back Will Shipley was number 19. Now, I want you guys' thoughts on this. I agree with Jeremiah Trotter, but at least to me, Will Shipley is woefully underranked in the top 20 players in the ACC. Got to take that with a grain of salt because if it were me, I'd rank him in the top 5.
Yeah. I don't remember if the Seminole running back Trey Benson was he top 10? I don't remember, but
yeah, I believe so. And Jordan Travis, I believe I'd have to go back and look. Jordan Travis was solidly in the top 2, I believe.
Yeah, I know it went Drake May, and then I think it went Drake May, Jared Verse, Jordan Travis. I think that's how it went. Which, fair enough. I think those are the 3 best players in the conference. But I think Shipley is like criminally low. I think he's criminally low, just based off how he helped the Clemson offense. And I think next you'll probably see Meggers just because it's more complete offense. There was a bunch of moving parts last year. But I agree with Trotter. Maybe Carter's a little bit low, but I think Shipley should be top 14, top 12 without a question, just based off watching every game that he's played.
Right, and Clifton, I think while we're talking about Shipley, to me at number 19, again, I said is woefully underrated. I think his versatility alone, I think his numbers have been good enough in his first 2 seasons, almost 1,200 yards rushing last year, but his ability to run the ball and catch passes out of the backfield, he returns kicks as well. That versatility is a lot higher than somebody who is the 19th ranked best player in their conference.
You read my mind. I was about to say the way he can He can hit the hole and go up the middle, and then he can hit the outside, go around and then, they can throw a screen pass to him or a little, slant or whatever to him. And then he, like you said, he returns kicks. I mean, he punts and kickoffs. I mean, he's got so much talent and so much versatility as a player. 19 and is just doesn't cut it, man, for me. I mean, yeah, we cover Clemson. Yeah, we might be a little biased, but 19? Right. Come on now.
Right. Yeah, I think you'll find plenty of people outside of the Clemson circles that would even contradict that particular ranking. And like we said, granted, it's just somebody's opinion, but, at times I think a little common sense still goes a long way.
Yeah, and I just looked. Trey Benson was 14. But honestly, I think him and Shipley are a toss-up. Maybe Benson is more complete, like running back, like your traditional running back. But I think Shipley's more versatile, and I think Shipley can be used in a lot more situations than Benson could. But, I'm sure a Florida State reporter would argue that with me. I mean, that could be a little biased, like Cliff said, but I think Shipley should deserve a little bit more respect, and you'll see that this year as well.
Yeah, agree 100%. Well, we're going to move on to another bit of news that just came through the wire 2 days ago. But I promise we're not done with 247 Sports yet. That they really just made a mule of themselves, I think, in the last 4 to 5 days. So we're not going to quite turn them loose just yet. We'll get back to that. But a new offer going out on the recruiting trail 2 days ago, and there really is not a lot of recruiting news to report, save to say that the All-In Cookout was last weekend. And during the cookout, it's always a big event for Coach Swinney and the Clemson football program. They extended an offer to a linebacker from Hoover, Alabama, and this young man's name is Bradley Shaw. 6 feet 1 inches tall, 216 pounds. If you look at a picture of him, he's a big, stocky, athletic kid. And he is ranked as high as the number 59 overall recruit in the country for the class of 2024. And when you look on the recruiting sites, he hasn't been predicted to or crystal balled to anybody yet. He's been offered by, I believe it's Alabama, Auburn, Notre Dame. So he's got some pretty hefty offers. And now with the Tigers coming in late, they see something in this kid they like. And Griffin, do you feel like, does the dismissal of TJ Dudley, going back to that and working to build up linebacker depth, do you think that has any play whatsoever on them offering Shaw, or is this just a really talented player that was on campus that they've had their eye on and they just decided they wanted to pull the trigger on an offer and try to get him into the fold?
I think it's a little bit of both. When you lose a younger player like TJ Dudley, you obviously want to refill that spot as soon as you can. So I think a little bit, but if Clemson see a linebacker prospect, he's going to be good. Just seeing, how, like, for recently, Jeremiah Trotter, Barrett Carter, Trenton Simpson, and he is a very smart, and what's his name? Bradley Shaw is very smart as well. I think that he'd be a great fit for Clemson, but obviously, he's being targeted by his home state, Alabama. He's also being targeted by Auburn, Notre Dame as well. But I think it'd be a huge pickup, especially for that 2024 class, that 2024 defense. But he'd be a great fill-in for Dudley's spot. He'd fill in perfectly. And, for the 5th overall linebacker prospect in the class, pull the trigger. I like it.
Right. And Clifton, one thing it says to me is, or at least his presence at the All-In Cookout, yes, he's an Alabama kid. He plays for Hoover High School in Hoover, Alabama. He has been offered by Alabama and Auburn. But to me, I don't think that this young man would have been on Clemson's campus and been at the All-In Cookout if he didn't see something that he liked in Clemson. And so what that indicates to me is there's a chance, I think, that Clemson could come in late and get this kid. I just don't think he would be there and take part if he didn't see something in Clemson that he liked.
Yeah, I'm just feel the same way. I mean, anybody who comes to that cookout, they have some type of interest. And, getting him after losing a linebacker, that tells me, they are looking for more linebackers. I mean, I don't think they would have offered him if they didn't. So,
yeah,
it's
for
common
sure.
sense.
Right. And this young man, Bradley Shaw, is entering his senior season at Hoover High School. So, I think his recruitment's probably coming down the home stretch. Clemson, again, coming in with a late offer, but we've seen that work out for the Tigers before. If the name Travis Etienne rings a bell to anybody.
Yep.
Sure does.
Yeah, that worked out quite well. So we'll see how things play out with Shaw's recruitment, and hopefully somewhere down the line in the coming months, we'll have some great news to report on a future episode of Around the Paul. But while we're right on the topic of Clemson news, one more little nugget of information to discuss just for a minute is a former Clemson wide receiver finding his way to a new NFL team. That's Dion King. He just signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I tell you what, so happy for Dion King, because not only is he getting a fresh start, he's getting it with one of the best teams in the NFL that just played for a Super Bowl and probably is one of the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl again this year.
Definitely. And this is what I like about, these football, organizations that play after the NFL, because Dion King had 4 receptions and 3 receiving touchdowns in the USFL championship game. I believe it was with Birmingham. And it easily propelled him into, the free agent mix. And he has a great team to learn from in Philly. You have plenty of guys. You have plenty of talent that he can learn from. He can compete against. I'll take A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, for example. You're with an elite quarterback with Jalen Hurts. And I looked around, and it said he could be a potential return guy as well, which, just proves, once again, versatility. And he's still 26 years old, a lot to prove. You just got to feel nothing but, happiness for the kid. He deserves it.
Yeah, and Cliff, we saw Dion King play for 3 years at Clemson. We know his speed. We know his hands. We know what this young man is capable of. And Griffin brought up a great point. He's still young. This is a kid that's still in the prime of his career athletically and physically. And I feel like if the right team gives him the chance, and I really hope that's Philadelphia, I still think Dion King can shine in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he can too. Like Griffin said, he has a great quarterback to receive the ball from that's going to throw to him, even though, he did come from Alabama. But whatever, that's the pros. I'm happy for him, like you said, that he's getting a second chance in the NFL. And I did watch him in the USFL several times after I found out that's where he was, because Birmingham was just so dominant. Like, they were dominant in the USFL. And so he was on a good team, had a good quarterback to throw to there to show off his skills. So like I said, I'm super happy for him, and I think he's going to do great things if they use him in the right way.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And Dion King was a vital part of the Clemson offense during his time in upstate of South Carolina. But Clemson's defense has a tendency to take center stage as well. So let's talk about that for a few minutes, guys. And I'm going to harken back to ACC Media Day a little bit. I'm going to bring that wagon wheel all the way around. But there was a lot of talk in Charlotte about Wes Goodwin in his second year as the defensive coordinator, and just the plethora of talent he returns at all 3 levels of the defense. So what are you looking for from the Clemson for Clemson on the defensive side of the ball this season? I felt like over the last 2 years, and particularly last year in Goodwin's first year, the talent was there, and at times I felt like the struggles of the offense put the defense in bad situations. So the numbers at times were probably not a good indication of how good that unit was.
Right. And I think, like you said, the new look offense is going to help them out a lot. Another thing that helps them out a lot is experience. I think experience is the most important thing when it comes to being a coach. And your second season is always going to be better than your first. At least I hope. That's how it usually goes. And you know the full system now. You know your whole roster. Even though Goodwin, I believe, was had a smaller role with the Clemson coaching staff, but I think that's the most important thing. You have your roster. You are now, I think, settled into your second season. I think maybe a little bit of growing pains last year for Goodwin, but experience goes a long way. Like I'm saying. So I think having that will be very important, and you could see maybe a little bit more, progression from just the defense, just from the defense, just based off having more experience.
Right. And Cliff, not only as Griffin said, experience is a big factor, but on the opposite side of the same coin, talent plays a big factor in that as well. And when you look at this Clemson defensive line, I mean, you've got guys. I don't think that anybody expected Tyler Davis and Rugeroro to return. Well, they did. And then Xavier Thomas, that domino fell, and he's returning for his sixth season. And then you've got a guy like Peter Woods, who is, to me, he's a generation. We talk about Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence being generational quarterbacks. And I think Peter Woods could be a generational type defensive lineman as well. You've got an experienced back end, Nate Wiggins, Sheridan Jones, Andrew Makuba. Linebackers, they speak for themselves. You've got Trotter, Barrett Carter, Wade Woodass. So with the experience for Goodwin going into his second season combined with the talent that he has returning, I really don't see any reason why this could not easily be one of the best Clemson defenses we've seen if everyone stays healthy.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. I think this could be a defense that after the years all said and done, it could be one of those defenses that you compare to like the 2016 defense of the national championship.
2016 all the way to 18, yep. I think, with the power.
Yeah, all the way to 18, yeah. I mean, you could really compare this defense to that defense because that defensive line is stout. I think I heard at Clemson Media Day that Dabo said that we were going to be 10 deep. And so that kind of perked my ears up like, oh, my goodness, that's a lot of defensive linemen. And so we have the depth, and I think that's going to help us too. I mean, something we haven't talked about yet, but how 24/7 ranked our defense number 9. Like, really?
Well,
like, are you freaking serious?
Right. Well, we said we weren't done with them yet, so we're going to have a little bit more fun at 247 Sports' expense here. But it was their list of top 10 defensive lines in the country. It was they focused specifically on the defensive line. And, obviously I see something like that. I click on it. I'm curious to see what other people say. And I'm an extreme consumer of others' opinions on our football team. So I had to look. And I tell you what, part of me wishes that I had not, because it was utter absurdity. Of the 10 of their top 10 defensive lines that 247 Sports listed in the country, Clemson was number 9 out of 10. They had Florida State at number 3, which, okay, feel free to be wrong. I mean, I think all three of us are going to disagree with that. Georgia at number 1 was their number 1. Okay, they've won 2 consecutive national championships. They've earned it. They've proven it on the field. Can't argue. Ohio State at number 2. As a blue blood, I think they get the benefit of the doubt more often than not. Florida State at number 3. And then this is where it kind of gets a little bit wacky. Michigan at number 4. Not sure that they've done anything to garner that type of recognition. Their defense has been okay. It's nothing that's just blown me away. Alabama.
Something to smile about. Sorry to interrupt you, but something to kind of like smile and smirk about is TCU beat the living crap out of them and ran all over that defensive line. So, number 4,
exactly.
Really? Yeah.
Right. But if you thought the Michigan at number 4 was crazy, well, keep scrolling down the list. The University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini, number 5.
That's crazy.
4 spots ahead of Clemson.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I almost just shut my computer off and said, you know what, heck with it. I'm not reading this anymore because I'm going to get angry at it. And I didn't want to be. I was in a good mood yesterday. So, but yeah, that's guys, that's just quite frankly absurd to try and put Illinois in the same conversation defensively as the Blue Bloods of college football.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of what they were thinking when they wrote that. And I came up with a couple things. And maybe because Clemson's defensive line has been maybe a little bit injured and they haven't really seen them all glue together. But obviously we know how guys like Xavier Thomas, Peter Woods, Tyler Davis, Justin Maskell, if they all return from injuries, that's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. And I personally thought if they are inside the top 5, okay, that's okay. But I think 9's absurd too. And maybe because we don't have, that Miles Murphy, that NFL draft prospect, because when I saw all these other, lines, there was maybe one player that was a top pick in the NFL draft, and everyone else was pretty much meh. But I think that's nuts. I think that their top 5, undoubtedly, Georgia's fine at 1, maybe Ohio State, Garrett, like you said, give them the benefit of the doubt. Florida State's a toss-up. I think they should be top 5, especially over like Illinois. I was pissed off like you. I'll say that. That was crazy. I don't have words for it. I don't have words for it.
Right. And Cliff, you know what struck me as well? And I actually wrote a little column about this list, and it's up on our website at clemsonsportsmedia.com now. So go check that out if you want to see my unfettered and unfiltered opinion about 247 Sports' list. But to me, the way that they did this ranking, and then one of their insiders who was specifically breaking down Clemson's unit, it was all fancy lip service that amounted to a big steaming pile of hypocrisy, because he lauded the talent on Clemson's defensive line, talked about the depth of Clemson's defensive front 4, talked about the great freshmen that are on campus. 4 of the 5 highest rated freshmen from Clemson's 2023 class are defensive linemen. And he talks about how great these guys are, only to be complicit in ranking Clemson 9 out of 10 and having teams like Illinois ahead of them. And to say nothing of the fact that number 7 was Penn State.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
at number 7. So of the top 10, Cliff, 4 of them. Is this a Big Ten guy? Because 4 of those teams are from the Big Ten: Ohio
Perhaps.
State, Michigan, Illinois, and Penn State.
Yeah, it's absurd. And part of me wants to think that they're doing this to get clicks, and because it's just, and they want us to talk about them. Like, I think that's why they're doing it. And I don't see how they could rank our defense below Penn State or Illinois, like Illinois, however you say that. And it's just absurd. And I mean, maybe Griffin, you're right. Maybe they saw how we played last year and didn't have our injuries and stuff like that. But all those guys are healthy now. I mean,
right.
Xavier Thomas, I think, is going to come back and like be his freshman self. And then you got Peter Woods, who showed out in the spring game. And, you got all these freshmen. And, I guess that's another reason. Maybe it's because they're freshmen. And you still haven't seen them on the field. So, but I still think it's absurd. So, that's really all I have to say. It's kind of like a loss for words.
Right. And I think sometimes it may be okay to give a bit of a hot take every now and then, but you still, like I said earlier, you still have to intersperse some common sense in there with it. And one of the things I said in the little column that I wrote was that anybody who spends more than 1 hour a week actually breaking down, studying, and digesting college football and offenses and defenses could tell you without any shadow of a doubt that Clemson's defensive line is better than Illinois and probably at least 4 or 5 of the teams ranked ahead of them, at least on that list.
I'm just at a loss for words just talking about this. I want to know what he was thinking when he wrote that. I think that cleared maybe a couple things up. Maybe
what was he thinking? Was he thinking at all?
That is true.
Yeah.
You do have a point. But I guess we'll never know. I guess the world may never know. Maybe take
we'll
a
just
chip
prove
on the
him
shoulder.
wrong. Yeah,
Prove him wrong in the locker room.
Well, we all know that Dabo loves to prove the doubters wrong. Now, I'll just, I'll drop this thought and I'll leave it at that. But I guarantee you the writer of that article has at least one fan right now, and he is the certain host of a nationally syndicated call-in radio show who happens to be one of Alabama's biggest fans. But we'll let people watching this figure out who that is, but we all know.
Yep.
We all know.
Yep.
But either way, Dabo, he loves to fire his team up. He's a great motivator, and if anything, he loves to prove people wrong. So I have. It would not surprise me if a printout of that article is posted in every locker in Death Valley or the Clemson football facility right now. And those defensive, at least in the defensive guys' lockers, and you don't want to tick those guys off. Let's just say that. I don't think they're a unit that you want to make angry.
Out of any unit in football, they're probably the people that you don't want to piss off. So be it.
Yeah.
For sure. And Griffin, you might be a little too young to remember him, but Clifton, kudos on the Dikembe Mutombo finger wag right there. Very nicely done.
Yes,
No.
No. Yeah.
We'll move on from that, and we've touched on this, but I think it stays relevant coming out of Media Day again, and that's, and I think it ties right back into what we were just talking about, and that's the national perception of Clemson football right now, and I think that the program as a whole has been openly panned far too much for back-to-back, 10-3, 11-3 seasons. An 11-3 season, it's not a bad season by anyone's measurables. And maybe it is for the expectations that Clemson sets for themselves, but that's just because it's a high standard. It wasn't that long ago, guys, that, I think we as Tiger fans would have been drooling over a 10-3 or an 11-3 season. And just the outright dismissal by some, not all, but some of the national media pundits and analysts of Clemson, again, to me, has just been very, very short-sighted.
Right. And I think a lot of that just comes from, I think people do like a downfall. People also like when a new team steps up to the plate. I think that's why Florida State is getting so much love. And, after 2 down seasons, there aren't many teams that immediately go right back up to the championship. So they could go up and then they can just decline on down. And I think that's what people might be, some, not all, might be thinking of Clemson. But, I think we know a little bit more than they. So I just think that, it's a lot of, especially ending the season off losses to South Carolina, getting blown out by Notre Dame, losing to Tennessee. It all adds up. It all adds up.
Right. And at the end of the day, Cliff, why doesn't Clemson get the benefit of the doubt? You look at Alabama. They missed the college football playoff for 2 consecutive years. Nobody in the national media was panicking over the demise of Alabama football. Ohio State gets the same benefit, but for whatever reason, a Clemson program that has won 7 of 8 ACC championships, qualified, made 6 consecutive college football playoffs, played for 4 national championships and won 2 of them. And we're less than 24 months away removed from their last appearance in the college football playoff. Yet the Tigers don't get that same benefit as other teams do. And it's always been something that has really baffled me.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Part of me wants to say people are just hating on Dabo, and then it kind of trickles down to the team. Because I was watching a podcast the other day, and he was talking about how he was talking about how there was like 4 different reasons why people hate Dabo, and I was just, this is insane. Like, I clicked right off of it before he even finished the first one, but it was just stupid. But I kind of think, that's part of it. Like, people don't like Dabo, and then it just trickles down on the team. But I really don't know, like, why we don't get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's crazy because some people do give us, and this might sound me like, what's the word I'm looking for? I say one thing and then say another thing, but some people do give us the benefit of the doubt. And some people don't, but a lot of the big name people don't. And one of them is on the SEC network, and but I don't know, man. Again, that's another thing that just baffles me. Like, everybody else gets all this benefit of the doubt, and we don't. So I don't understand it.
Well, the good news, guys, is that we are about a month away. We're actually 32 days away, I believe, from the Labor Day Monday, the first game at Duke, and that's when it gets real. And Clemson, they love to silence the doubters. That's always been part of their MO, and they're going to get their chance in about a month. And we talked about it before, and it's for that exact reason, being written off by some as a has-been, as a has-run. I just expect that game to get fairly ugly.
Yeah, and the team knows it. It's a huge year. It's a now or never type year. I personally, in my opinion, just because you do have 2 quote unquote disappointing seasons compared to how you were before. It's just a huge season, and the people know it, the players know it, and you're going to see what happens Labor Day Monday. They come out the gate exploding.
Yep. And so we don't have to wait too much further for that. But, that's kind of wrapping things up for us tonight. But before we sign off, I think we should mention another former Clemson athlete. We talked about him a few episodes ago, and that is Atlanta Braves pitcher Spencer Strider. And he had himself quite a night last night against the Los Angeles Angels. It was a 5-1 Braves victory. Strider, I believe it was 10 or 11 strikeouts, and 2 of them came against arguably the best player on the planet, Shohei Ohtani. So Spencer Strider, former Tiger, just keeps representing Clemson University. And another big night. He's, I believe, at 209 strikeouts this year. He is the fastest player in Major League history to reach 200 strikeouts in a season.
And he beat his record of last year. That's great. You see greatness when it's due. And although I may not like the Braves as much as you guys do, you have to. Greatness is there.
That's okay.
Great. Listen, I'm speaking from a rival fan, and listen, I have no hope in my team. Spencer Strider is, I think, one of the best strikeout artists in the game. You see it. He struck out Ohtani twice, and you're going to see plenty of him in the future. And it's just beginning for him. And you got to like it for the kid. I'm happy for him. Just as a Clemson student right now, I'll be happy for him.
Oh, for sure. Well, Spencer Strider is a lot of fun to watch, and I tell you, I can speak for myself and probably for you guys as well. We have a lot of fun recording the Around the Paul podcast every week as well. I think it just gets better and better with each passing week, and we would be remiss if we didn't thank everybody who is watching on YouTube and looking forward to seeing it every week. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at CU Sports Media, our website, ClemsonSportsMedia.com. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Clemson Sports Media. And episode 5 of Around the Paul, this is season 1, episode 5, will be up not too long from now. So we're looking forward to that as well. We're going to go back to the lab, and we're going to come up with a great show for you next week. And we can tell everybody we don't want to give away too many secrets, but in the coming weeks, we are working on some special guests to appear here on Around the Paul. So we'll keep you guessing on that, but that's all the more reason for you to keep coming back and keep watching. Isn't that right, guys?
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I'll just say this, one of them's on the 4-letter network.
So there's that. Start the guessing game.
Start the guessing game.
And lastly, before we wrap this up tonight, and I just saw this today, I'm not sure if you guys did or not, and really it broke my heart when I saw it. But also, I think it's appropriate to send our prayers and well wishes out to Brent Venables. Right now, of course, former Clemson defensive coordinator, now the head coach at Oklahoma. He publicly announced today that his wife, Julie Venables, has been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
And for anybody that has seen the impact of that and has been around it or has had a loved one afflicted by it, it's just a horribly, horribly insidious disease. And, I think I can probably speak for everybody, not just in Clemson, but from around the country that would have their support behind Julie Venables, and certainly we do as well.
100%. Just I'm hoping to see everyone put their differences aside, especially in the college football world, and just pray for this woman, and just best wishes to the Venables family.
Yeah, and if anybody,
100%.
yeah, and like you said, if anybody knows about it, it's Dabo Sweeney and his wife. So
Kathleen, a survivor as well. So
yeah,
I think there's a strength there that those two share.
Yep. So Dabo can give him comfort and help him, and anybody and everybody, even if you don't know somebody that suffers from that, you can always everybody's probably had a loved one that passed away or whatever, so you can how to give comfort, right? So just that's what you need to do in this time of need, because that's what he needs right now.
Right. And, once a part of the Clemson family, always a part of the Clemson family. Brent Venables, his wife, his family will always be a special part of Clemson football. Tyler Venables still playing for Clemson, dealing with injuries right now. But, it's the two families will always be intertwined. And, again, once part of the family, always part of the family. But to our Clemson family tuning in tonight, that's going to do it for us. And we'll be back next Wednesday night with another episode of Around the Paul. But until then, have a great rest of your week, a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch everybody on the flip side. Garrett Mitchell, Griffin Barfield, Clifton Kennedy, and until next week, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.